So you want to be a celebrity author like J.K. Rowling or Stephen King, rake in all the cash that comes from movie adaptations, video games, action figures, and have millions of fans cheering your name and calling you to Comic-Con and book festivals. Well, Journey of 1,000 Miles begins with one step, and that one step, in your case, is the first book you ever write. Hi, my name is Deepak Thomas. I write fantasy and science fiction based on Indian culture and history. And I've been writing for 4 years now, and over these last 4 years, I've written up around 5 books and published 2 with a third on its way. And in my endeavor to write and publish these books, I have learned from different sources on what is the best process to actually finish a book. And of course, a process will be different for each author depending on their style. In this video, I want to talk about the process that worked well for me. And some of you will have similar mindset like me, would be comfortable writing in the same style. So without further ado, I will jump into my writing process to show you how you can finish your first book. So the journey of your book begins with step 1, which is to come up with your idea. A book idea needs to follow 3 critical aspects. Number 1, it should be something that you would enjoy writing. Remember, if your book is a hit, your fans would want more of that same stuff. So whatever it is that you decide to write, make sure it's something that you will enjoy writing at least for 5 to 10 years. Choose an idea that is something you would love to write. The second aspect is to choose something that readers would enjoy reading. How do you find this out? By doing market research. Try to write a book that has a market, that is something that people would be interested in, not just you and your friends. Something that has a significant appeal for the commercial audiences. So think about ideas in those terms. And the third thing would be the idea of a purple cow. Seth Godin, the marketing guru, came up with this concept of the purple cow. And what it means is that when you're driving along on a road and you see a field filled with brown cows, white cows, or spotted cows, you don't pay much attention. But if in the midst of all those cows you see a purple cow, then you would be curious on why that cow's purple and you want to find out more. You might stand out and take a picture. So that's what you want to do with your story idea as well. Writing is one of the most competitive industries in the world, and not a lot of people read. So you have to make sure that your concept or your idea stands out from the rest of the crowd like a purple cow. So that's what you need to think about your idea. Whatever it is, whether it is a cool setting, whether it's an interesting take on familiar characters, or whether it's the plot or situation that is really fascinating or interesting, your idea should be something that meets all these 3 criteria. Once you have your idea, I would recommend that you outline. So there are 2 types of writers. There are gardeners and there are architects. Gardeners are writers who will plant the seed of an idea and allow those story ideas to generate itself like a plant. They will allow the story to grow and create its own little offshoots. Some famous writers like this are Stephen King and George R.R. Martin. The other type of writer is the architect, who go in with an outline. They know exactly what their story will be. They know what each character will be doing in each chapter. These are some famous examples of these are J.K. Rowling and Brandon Sanderson. Now for different writers, different processes will work, and I would let you choose what your process is. But no matter what, I would highly recommend you try outlining your book. By outlining your book, you are clarifying your idea. You are redoubling on this idea, whether it is something new, it's something unique, is it something you want to stick with for a long time. So when you outline in 3 aspects. Outline the plot, which is what the story will be. Outline the setting. Just pay attention to what kind of setting you're creating. Where will the story be set? Will there be magic? Will it be realistic? Outline those things as well. And third, at least outline your main character. What are the ideologies they believe in? What are the need they have? What do they want to achieve in their life? Just do a little short outline on these as well. You don't need to spend a lot of time doing outlines, even though there are authors who write 100-page outlines. For most of us, a few paragraphs on setting, character, and plot should be enough. I go 1 extra mile. I usually break it down into bullet points on what the overall story will look like. That's something you can try and experiment with your own process as well. Once you've done with the outline, begins the big process, which is your first draft. I think of my first draft like the clay that I'm collecting before I build my final statue. So the idea with a first draft is not to create a very super clean or super well detailed story, but is to just get the crux of the story out of your system. I would recommend setting up a writing routine and daily word count goals and just hammer away. Whether you feel like writing or not, just sit in front of your desk and put the story out. You have your outline as your guide. You have the fundamental idea concept. Just start drafting, putting the words on paper. Do it on a sustainable, continuous pace and make sure that you get a full complete novel size manuscript. So usually a novel needs to be at least 50,000 words to qualify. I would recommend you aim at least between 60,000 and 70,000 words. Once your first draft is completed, select someone, have a quick read through, fix all the basic errors, and then give it to someone you really trust. This person is known as your alpha reader. Once you give it to your alpha reader, allow them to read it, go through it, give you their first thoughts. You yourself, while finishing the first draft, would have come up with a lot of things you would want to change or things you want to dive deep on. Take notes of this while doing the first draft itself. That, along with your alpha reader's notes, should come together in order to create a list of revisions that you need to make in the next step. The next step in your book is the second draft. This is where you take in all your feedback that you received from your alpha reader, all the notes you took in the first draft process, and start making those revisions and changes. In the second draft is where your story begins to closely resemble its final form. This is where you really need to hone down on things. You really need to build those characters up. By the time you hit your second draft, you need to be very clear on what your story vision is. Write your second draft, finish it, follow the same discipline you did with your first draft. It will be much easier this time because you've already got something that you are just revising and fixing. After the second draft, you go to the process of beta reading. This is where you expand the number of readers who will read your first book and give feedback. Now, if you're really rich, this is a point where you can hire a developmental editor. I wouldn't recommend that for most writers, especially beginner writers. It's very expensive, and usually you cannot make full use of a developmental editor unless you are really adept at writing. So I would just recommend find a group of friends whose opinions you trust, who read the kind of books you are planning to write, and send them the draft. Ask them for their feedback, what works, what characters they liked, what they would like to see improve, and gather that feedback from them. So once you have this feedback, this is where you move into the third draft. Take those feedback from your beta readers, implement that. This is where your story takes its final form. Third draft is where I would recommend you stop. Now, ideally, you have to do as many drafts as required until your story is perfect. And this is what I did with my first few books. But here's the truth. If your concept, any book can be made great if you keep working on it. But if your plot and your story and your concept was really good, by third draft, you should get a book that's interesting to read. If it doesn't work by third draft, you really need to relook at the concept that you came up with to begin with. So I recommend you stop at the third draft. This is the story that you will use to move on to the next phase of your publishing journey, which is to edit. So at this point, I want you to celebrate. You've got what you call a manuscript. Now, a manuscript is by no means a finished product. You have to move to the next stage, which is known as editing. So I will talk more about editing in my next video. So hit subscribe for the next part of the video. It's absolutely free. And if you found this video useful, then you can support me by heading to www.deepakthomaswriter.com and download my free novella Lion of Bharat, and give me your feedback so I can keep improving on my writing journey. So if you want more writing content like this, feel free to check out my other videos. Meanwhile, keep writing, come up with that great idea. If you want to know how you can come up with the next great idea, you can check out my video linked here. And meanwhile, keep writing, keep dreaming, and all the best for your writing goals. Cheers.